And welcome to 12 Questions, a podcast where we dissect anything and everything with the same incisive set of queries. I'm Paris.
I'm Jonny.
And today we're looking at the 1993 stop-motion animated film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. You may know it as a Tim Burton work. It involves Jack Skellington, who runs Halloweentown, and has decided that this year he actually wants to run Christmas instead of Halloween. How will that go? We'll tell you all about it. We're not paying attention to spoilers over here.
You may see a lot of this film about now in the run up to Halloween. It's an iconic design and vision of Halloweentown and other imaginings of popular holidays, but mainly Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely debate over whether it's a Halloween film or a Christmas film.
Ooh, Paris, where do you stand on that?
I would call it a Halloween film.
See, I personally think it's a Halloween film. That's why we're doing it now. If you think it's a Christmas film, that's fine. You can wait until December and listen to this,
Or you can watch it at Halloween and at Christmas.
That's true, yeah. Double the fun.
Yeah,
Double
absolutely.
the Tim Burton.
Absolutely.
So, we'll get right on to our questions then, to really pick apart the what's going on in this film. So our first question, Paris, what's your favourite character in this film?
Should we go through what the characters are?
Oh yes, good idea.
Just run through them. So, obviously you've got Jack, who's
Yes.
the protagonist.
So the protagonist, Jack, the Pumpkin King.
Yes.
Who seems to be he's central to everything that goes on in Halloweentown. He seems, whilst he doesn't, it's unclear on his role there.
It's weird because there is obviously the mayor, who is the democratically elected official,
Yes.
but Jack is in charge and the mayor reports to him. So is he, I mean, he is a king. Is he just is it a constitutional monarchy?
Well, we'll
Is
come
it
on.
even constitutional?
We'll come on to this later.
We will.
But Jack is, he's the big head honcho of Halloweentown, and it's his job to make sure Halloween goes off without a hitch and scare as many people as possible. But he's bored of Halloween. Weirdly enough. I mean, you can understand that.
I mean, he has to be scary every single year, and he's grown so tired of the same old thing.
Absolutely. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy. So he's looking for something new. That's kind of his arc through most of the film when he decides to become the Father Christmas, the Sandy Claus. So supporting him on his adventure is his lovable dog, Zero.
Oh, yes. Who is just a ghost dog.
Just a ghost dog.
Doesn't really do much, but is cute.
Cute little ghost dog.
So, got a little glowing nose, which is nice.
And then Paris, you mentioned the mayor earlier.
Yes, we have the mayor, who he has two faces, which is very interesting.
Ooh.
Like, his head rotates to show another face, which have different facial expressions. He's quite useless, to be honest. Like, he doesn't want to make any decisions. He just defers everything to Jack, which is, democratically problematic. But yeah, he's not a particularly advanced character. I'm not really that jazzed about him.
No, he's quite a transparent dig at politicians, but politicians on the base level, like, oh, they're two-faced. It's not really saying anything about it.
Yeah.
But it's ostensibly a kids' film, so fair enough.
Yeah. And then we have Sally, who becomes Jack's love interest, and she was created by, I believe his name is Dr. Finkelstein, and she was made of...
It's Finkelstein.
Whatever. She's a patchwork sort of doll. Not really sure what she is, but she's stitched together physically.
I see. I thought you were going to say she was a patchwork character made up of various character traits that don't really mesh and sort of all stand out against one another.
You've got some feelings on this.
I do have some feelings about Sally. I really dislike Sally's character. So her motivation is kind of all over the place. She has a kind of a fixation, which we'll come on to a bit later. But she's first introduced during one of Jack's monologues, where Jack is talking about how he's tired of the same old thing. And then her first line is, "Jack, I know how you feel." And yet, throughout the whole rest of the film, it's never implied that she's tired of Halloween or tired of anything.
I believe before that meeting, actually, you see her with Dr. Finkelstein, and she tears herself away from him.
Yes.
So I think it is implied that she's tired of being controlled by Dr. Finkelstein.
I guess, but I don't know. I feel like their situations are markedly different. I don't think there's a fair comparison there. I just think I just don't get her.
Okay, I mean, I think we can come on to that in a later question.
Yeah. I see you got some notes there. Yeah, that's fair.
So who else?
So we've had Jack the Mayor and we've had Sally.
Yeah, and we've had Zero, of course. There's also the three trick-or-treaters, Lock,
lovely.
Shock and Barrel.
Very nice.
Who are in service to Oogie Boogie, who is the villain of the film. I mean, he's not in it a lot, but he is technically the villain.
He's the baddest bad guy.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. We also have Santa, who they mistakenly think is called Sandy Claus. The Easter Bunny makes a very brief appearance, but not a standout star of the film.
Yeah. So these three kids, have you got anything to say about them?
They're quite devious little children.
Oh, yes. I think they're really quite fun to watch.
I really like Kidnap the Santa Claus is their song, which
that's
really great song. Yeah, they're definitely fun to watch. They're the mischievous trick-or-treaters, which is kind of what you need in a Halloween film, I guess.
And they have a nice kind of self-contained dynamic. Like, there seems to be a smart one and a stupid one and
an
another
alright one.
Yeah.
The other one.
Yeah. All three.
Anyone else we need to...
I'd say those are the big hitters of the story.
Yeah, so with that in mind, who's your favourite character?
Ooh, it's an interesting one. I do enjoy Jack. I think Jack is characterised almost like a villain of a different film in some ways. So obviously that's kind of the point, is it's a subversion, is that we're rooting for the ghouls and the ghosts. But one nice thing about Jack is all his kind of monologue songs, the songs where he's singing about himself, his character's motivations, they all build really nicely. So they start kind of low, he's walking around, there'll be there'll be like a single bit of, usually woodwind, like a clarinet or a saxophone, and he'll be kind of musing upon his diabolical plan with something else and this and then by the end he's kind of really going for it and he's I think I just clipped the microphone. But like it builds, it always builds up in both like speed, momentum and just sheer
emotion
and sheer volume and emotion, and that's really nice. So that's a lot of fun, and his voice is just it's delicious. So Danny Elfman, who plays Jack, there's just a really nice kind of rolling quality to the voice, which I obviously cannot imitate. Yeah, I think you did all right. Well, I think I've talked myself into it. I mean, I know it's the obvious choice, but Jack is, I think, one of the few clear characters in the film. So yeah, I'd say he's my favourite.
I'm going to go with, actually, one of the trick-or-treaters. I'm going to go with Shock, who is the female trick-or-treater.
Oh, that's a good choice. I like it. Why?
Because within that group, she's very much the leader. In her own mind, she's the leader. They don't really listen to her, which is quite frustrating for her, but she pushes through and she, tells them off, basically. She keeps them in line. Okay. And I've got to admire that, you know.
Yeah.
I can get on board with this girl.
Can you empathise with that? Is that something you go through in your life?
I mean, I feel like all women have gone through that at some point.
Oh, yeah?
Especially because she's surrounded by men, and it is a thing, you know, it's a thing in life. So I just really like that she's, she don't take anyone's crap.
That's good. Yeah, there's a lot of...
Good for her.
There's a lot of kind of bumbling and incompetence in Halloweentown.
Yeah,
the whole place
she
is
knows
kind of
what
crooked.
she's doing. She's like...
Yeah, she's
on
through
this.
That. Okay, I respect that.
Even though she's 10, good for her.
Well, and as one of the few female characters in the film, she definitely does a lot better than...
Yeah, I mean, there's essentially only 2 female characters.
Yes, and she's not rubbish. Anyway, enough about Sally, we'll get on to her later. The second of our incisive questions with which to dissect this film like a bug that's been reanimated or a character that's been sewn back together is, Paris, what is your favourite colour in this piece?
Well, I'm actually going to go with... I find it really interesting that there's so much neon in Oogie Boogie's scenes.
Yes.
Because in a lot of films, when you have the heroes all brightly lit and brightly coloured, and villains are shrouded in darkness, and like with Chicken Run that we did a couple of weeks ago, she's very much go watch a previous episode. The villain is very much, she wears a lot of dark colours. She's very gloomy. The lighting is very gloomy. Whereas it's subverted in this film, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, the villain's lair is bright and garish.
Yeah, it's all neon, and I mean, it's not like a particularly nice bright colour, because as you say, it's quite garish, but it's still a subversion, which I suppose reflects the rest of the film in that it's very subverted of what you expect of films. Like you say, you're rooting for the ghouls and the ghosts and whatnot. And it also, I feel like the neon subversion kind of links with the music style as well,
yes,
because the
very
music
true.
for a lot of the town meeting song and Making Christmas, they've all got a very spooky quality to them, whereas Oogie Boogie's song is quite chirpy and jazzy.
Yeah.
It's not quite what you'd expect of a villain tune.
No. Well, yeah. No. It is what you'd expect in that it's very self-indulgent.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is really
But
lovely.
I mean the bass melody and the instruments kind of thing.
The style is
The
is
style,
very different. Yeah, that's fair. Could you say something about how the style is quite it's kind of jazzy, but like in a very energetic way? Would you say that plus the neon is immoral? I'm thinking.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because this film is completely about holidays, right? Which
Yeah.
usually have some kind of religious or moral aspect to them. And with this kind of seedy theme and gambling, is that a bit of villain characterization in itself? Is he bad because he's because he's adult?
So you're saying
and
he's the immoral side of Halloween that's the more, throwing money down the drain because he's a gambler and...
So he's the real
he's
sin.
the capitalist villain.
Wow, I hadn't thought about as capitalist, but yeah.
We got here.
We were talking about colours. I'm so sorry to derail you.
I mean, that concluded me on colours, but what was your favourite colour?
Oh, right. So I made a note of something throughout the film, which turns out to be wrong, but I'm going to tell you listeners about it anyway, because I think it's an interesting exploration. In Halloweentown, they make a very considered effort, I'd say, by the filmmakers, to not show any blue. So if you watch all the scenes in Halloweentown, you'll see pretty much zero blue, with the following exceptions. Christmastown has a lot of blue because of the snow and the electric lights. And whenever you see any blue in Halloweentown, it's something from Christmastown. It's like a Christmas background. It's a blue Christmas light. It's a bit of snow lit in a blue way. So blue, it doesn't belong in Halloween, but it does belong in the normal world and Christmas world. So I think it represents kind of a purity, and that's supported by the other two uses of blue, which are the character of Sally. Now, for all I've said about her, she is what you might call the purest character in Halloween, and that's characterised because she's the only one that describes bad things as bad.
And that's also, musically, she's quite pure because she's a soprano, which is usually associated with purity within musicals, definitely.
Excellent point. So she's the only one who... at the start of the film, the mayor's saying, "Oh, it's been the most horrible Halloween yet, and it's been the spookiest and scariest," and they're referring to bad things like they're good. But whereas in Sally's song, she talks about being scared of an upcoming tragedy. So the mayor would be enthusiastic about a tragedy. He loves a good scaring and ghouls and that. But so Sally is pure and she's blue. She has blue eyelids, and the only blue lighting in Halloweentown not associated with Christmas occurs in one of her scenes. There's like a blue light behind a stove. And then Zero is also a bit blue, the dog. And he's a dog, of course he's pure.
I mean, dogs are pure. Dogs are the purest things.
So I like that running motif. But then Oogie Boogie's scene comes along, and there's tons of neon blue everywhere, and I'm looking at my notes.
Blue.
No, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to shut down then.
There's no blue theme.
It was good while it lasted.
Yeah, but however, I did enjoy that little separation there. But I will say it's not my favourite colour. My favourite colour in the film is the red of Jack Skellington's Sandy Claus outfit when he dresses up as Father Christmas in order to deliver presents. It's just a really great shade of red. It pops out against everything in the whole scene. Oh, it's just
a really good red.
It's just a really good red, and sometimes you just gotta appreciate a really good red.
That's fair enough. Red is a nice colour. Should we move on to our third question?
I would love to, Paris.
Okay, our third question is, what was your favourite meeting?
Okay. Well, that's interesting, because at the start of the film, a lot of the characters and relationships are already set up.
Yeah.
So perhaps we might be looking for a meeting of a different kind?
Well, I was thinking there's kind of musical meetings. I think, especially in the earlier songs, there's lots of quite harsh clashes between lines. Like in This Is Halloween,
Yes.
one character sings a line, then the next one sings a line, and they kind of clash together.
Yes.
But in a very interesting way. It's a very interesting musical style. It's like there's kind of a contrast between vocal styles. They don't really harmonise so much. They just
No.
kind of go line to line.
Kind of jerks around a lot, like a haunted house ride.
It jacks around. Yeah. See, that's what I like about it. It's got that kind of uneasiness to it, which, you know, it's the introduction to a Halloween film. I'm glad it's like that. I enjoy that. And also Oogie Boogie and Sandy Claus meeting musically I really like, because we've discussed Oogie Boogie in the previous question, but Sandy Claus's musical style is not really a jazzy one, whereas Oogie Boogie's voice is a jazz voice. So, you know, it's kind of, I mean, almost heavy-handedly points out that they're from two very, very different worlds, i.e. Halloweentown and Christmastown, but I like it. It sounds good. I like that song a lot.
You're right, and you can hear that in the instrumentation. So Halloween is kind of mainly characterised by winds, so like clarinets and sometimes saxophones and that sort of thing. But it's mainly the wind section, and the Christmastown is the brass section. You get more kind of trumpet and trombone. You hear that in, you know, what the song "What's This" is the first time brass kind of really comes into a track. They both have strings, which kind of links them. Maybe that is the holiday essence. They all have strings. But yeah, you're right. In that Oogie Boogie meeting, there you hear them both kind of bouncing off each other, which is very nice. Similarly, in A Meeting of Worlds, I say that my favourite meeting in the film is actually the first thing you see in the film, apart from Walt Disney Presents, obviously. You see the concentric circles, not too dissimilar to a spiral, of what I'm calling the nexus of worlds that Jack stumbles onto.
Okay.
So Jack stumbles onto a place where there are doors to different holidays. So he's in Halloweentown, but he can go to what looks like Thanksgiving, St. Patrick's Day, Christmas. And each of these worlds have a very different visual style. So when Jack goes to Christmasland, it's very kind of Dr. Seuss. There's lots of lovely kind of curls. It's obviously red and green, very Christmassy. It's all flowing and very nice. And also offset with like some nice geometric patterns. Like there are some lovely kind of diamond patterned blankets that the elves have. You don't see this realm so much, but it's got a really distinct style. Which is great when they try and force that into the Halloween style. So the style of Halloweentown is completely different. It's very slender. It's very kind of spindly. It's apparently it was inspired by German expressionism, which is which
so
I've read.
interesting.
It's which was an art movement from kind of the 1910s and 1920s in Germany, which inspired a lot of silent films, which then went on to influence kind of early horror.
Which I suppose this is kind of influenced by, really.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting. How that's coming full circle.
You might want to know, Paris, that the cinematography on the 1930 Dracula film was done by Karl Freud, who was influenced heavily by German expressionism.
Very, very interesting.
But yeah, so seeing that kind of clash of worlds, like you take a Christmas tree that's lovely and kind of voluminous, you know, it's quite rounded like Father Christmas himself. You put that in Halloweentown and suddenly it's spindly, all the branches are kind of coming off it. And that's the meeting I like most in this film. How do you cram Christmas into Halloween? It's really nice. Paris, I was just wondering, just apropos of nothing actually, nothing to do with the podcast. What would your nan think of this?
Wow.
I tricked you. It's actually our next question.
That's what question 4. How did you
Trick or treat,
that?
Paris.
Oh. See, I don't think my nan would like it.
Okay, tell me more.
I mean, I know we're supposed to go for the general nan, but I'm just thinking of my own nan. She wouldn't like it. She's very Christian. So, you know, she's all about traditional Christmas.
Yeah,
and I
understandable.
Which I think she'd like Jack Skellington's kind of Christmas.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's quite unpleasant and it upsets lots of children. Yeah, I don't think she'd like it because I think it's not sticking with the status quo kind of thing. I'm not quoting High School Musical. I know it sounds it. You know, it happens. Yeah, it's not sticking with what should be. Like, traditionally, Halloween is when it is, Christmas is when it is. The two do not meet.
I see.
And now they've met, as discussed in the previous question.
But could you not argue, based on the conclusion of this film, where Jack Skellington tries to take over and do Christmas, but is ultimately unsuccessful?
Oh, that's the point.
Maybe that is just reinforcing your nan's view.
Ah, yes, perhaps.
times.
So she'd certainly like the ending, but I don't think she'd like the journey.
Oh, right, I see. So she'd be sitting there watching all
She'd be
this,
like, oh no,
this
don't like
creepiness,
this.
this depravity and immorality, and she'd think,
Absolutely.
oh, absolutely not for me.
No.
Okay, I think a certain kind of Nan could enjoy this.
Okay, go for it.
Because it's quite whimsical and nice. Whilst the horrors of Halloween are presented, they're done so in quite a neutered way. No one actually gets killed or anything like that. There's no real horror. So I think that's quite enjoyable. So there's a certain kind of Nan out there who'd enjoy this.
Okay.
I'd recommend this to a kind of cool Nan who's all
Like Mean Girls, but the further generation.
This is let's get this straight. This is for cool Nans only.
Are you saying my Nan's not cool?
Oh gosh, you really painted me into a corner here.
Oh dear, let's move on from that.
Okay, but a Nan could enjoy this, but perhaps your more conservative Nan might have a worse time during the experience.
Yeah, shall we move on to our next question?
I would love to move on to our next
Okay,
question.
question 5. If this were a food, what would it be?
Ooh, okay. So the palette of the film, like we mentioned, it varies between the worlds, but you spend most of your time in Halloweentown, which, like the last stop motion film we reviewed, Chicky Run, is quite earthy. Lots of oranges for the pumpkins, blacks for the town, and it's quite irregular as well. So if you say look at the stones of a courtyard or the design of a building in Halloweentown, you won't get like nice regular squares. You'll just get lots of kind of a mishmash of shapes. So
it's something of a grab bag, perhaps.
Oh, are you going where I think you're going with this, Paris?
Maybe like a trick or treat, assorted sweets kind of thing.
One of these days we'll have to pick a food that's not directly referenced in the film.
I know, we're awful at this, aren't we?
Either we're awful at this, or the people who make these works of art are actually really good.
They're just really actively thinking about food. They're just really hungry when they make these films.
Well, quite. So just in
Are they okay?
Well, yeah. I mean, even if you look at there's a couple of gates in Halloweentown, and you look at the bars of the gates, and they're not straight or at all. They're all crooked and bent.
Yeah.
So we're saying like a kind of grab bag of sweets of different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I mean, a kind of bent sweet could be a candy cane, perhaps.
Oh, actually, that is a very good point. I was thinking about this before. Maybe a candy cane.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, okay, so here's what I'm thinking, right?
Go for it.
There's kind of two things to this. One, there's three things. Obviously, there's the Christmas relation. And you brought up there's crooked. I hadn't thought of that, but...
yeah.
So, a crooked Christmas might be another title for this piece.
Ooh, I like it.
But there's two other things about the candy cane that really speak to this particular film, which is the distinct separation between the lines on a candy cane. You have this nice...
the duality.
The duality.
A bit like the drumstick in our first episode.
Very good. That's a good Easter egg for long-time listeners. Yeah, the duality between Christmas and Halloween, the two don't mix. Maybe that's intentional.
Yeah.
But also, it's a big spiral. It spirals up the candy cane. And that actually is going to bring me right on to our next question. Paris, I'm going to ask, why would you do that?
Why would you
And I'm
do that?
I'm not stopping because I really want to know.
Okay.
Spirals everywhere. If you haven't noticed this in the film, then you will next time you watch it. There are spirals everywhere in this film. And in fact, the iconic kind of image of this film, if you describe this film to someone, the first image that will come to mind is the main character, Jack, standing with the moon behind him on top of a huge spiral.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, that's so iconic, but why? What's that? What does that spiral mean? There's spirals everywhere in the film. And what does it mean?
Do you want to tell us where else the spirals are?
Okay, look. So
He's made a list.
I made a huge list because I was trying to think, okay, so if the spirals are here, then it means this. Or if the spirals are with these characters, they mean that. But I found it so hard because the spirals are everywhere. They are everywhere. So you can't link them to a specific theme because they're in all the themes.
Okay.
And you can't link them to a specific character because all the characters have them. So to give you an incomplete list of all the spirals in the film, are you ready, Paris?
I'm ready. I'm scared, but I'm ready.
You will find a spiral on the mayor's eye, on Jack's doorbell, on Jack's gate, on the portal onto Christmasland, on the wheel of the train in Christmastown, in the lollipop in Christmasland. In fact, in all lollipops on the film, you'll see a spiral. On Sally's dress right over her heart, on Sally's sewing machine, on the rope that sends wine up to Jack is left caught in a spiral. On the doors to the town meeting, you'll see a spiral. And the spider web with the fairy lights, they're arranged in a spiral. On the hill for Jack's songs we mentioned is in a spiral. The doctor's brain has spirals. The frame of Jack's bed, the stairs on Jack's tower, the above Oogie Boogie's lair, there are 2 spirals. On the drawing of Jack as Sandy Claus, there's a spiral. On the wall during the song Kidnap the Sandy Claus. On the floor during the song Kidnap the Sandy Claus. On Jack's chair, the snake lanterns in the town hall, the bodywork of Santa's sleigh, the runners of Jack's sleigh, the candy canes in Halloweentown, the boogeyman's winch, and on the arms of Santa's chair.
And that is a sample from Johnny's upcoming rap album. Make sure you check it out.
We'll add a sick beat, it'll be really nice.
Yeah.
There are spirals just everywhere in this film, and I
Okay, I want to give you a really anticlimactic answer. Tim Burton just likes spirals.
Well,
like a lot of his films have spirals in them.
that I can understand that. This is Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas.
It's his aesthetic.
No, Paris, this goes deeper.
Okay.
Because this is, as we know, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. He came up with it and he co-wrote it, but he wasn't that involved in the visual styling as you might think.
Okay.
So the film wasn't directed by Tim Burton. That's a common misconception. It was directed by Henry Selick. And Henry Selick, when he talks about the production, he says it's like Tim Burton sort of laid the egg of it. He came up with the idea, he co-wrote it, but it was Henry and the team's job in San Francisco to hatch it.
Okay.
This is a direct quote from the director. Tim Burton was not in San Francisco when we made it. He visited about 5 times in 2 years and was here no more than 8 or 10 days in total.
So that's very interesting. So Tim Burton was not the one there pushing forward the spiral.
Yeah, because these are little background details. You can't. This is someone who's put that there. This is day-to-day work.
Absolutely.
And so the director says that it was his job and the cinematographer's job, Pete Kazetchnik. And Pete, the cinematographer's job, to make the film look like a Tim Burton film.
Oh, so it's kind of... Yeah, that explains why there's a lot of spirals.
Yes.
Like they're really going to Christmastown on making this spiral.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, so it's a pastiche. It's not Tim Burton loves spirals. It's someone's looked at Tim Burton's work and they said, okay, what's key in here? Spirals.
He really likes spirals.
He loves spirals. We're going to put spirals everywhere. So maybe that's why they did that.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'm satisfied by that.
Okay, shall we...
Okay, sorry.
Should we move on? I've got a
We
way.
have to move on. I
think you need to calm down about the spirals, my friend. So, my question on why would you do that, why is Oogie Boogie bugs?
Why? Yeah.
Why is he made of bugs?
Why is he bugs? So, after Oogie Boogie is defeated, his kind of sack comes off.
His sack comes off and he's like lots of bugs, but only one bug is actually him.
Yeah. So is it like a hive mind sort of situation?
I don't get it. Is he like the queen bee of bugs?
Because bugs aren't gambling.
Yeah, why is
bugs
he a gambler
jazz.
as well?
Like, it just doesn't... It doesn't...
Who is this man slash bug?
It's lots of bits trying to come together and it doesn't...
And also, the weird thing is, they keep referencing in Kidnap the Santa Claus and in Oogie Boogie's song.
Oh, yeah.
His snake and spider stew is referenced.
So twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why, as a gambler, is he renowned for his stew? Like, he's not a chef. He's a bug.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he is the snake and spider stew. Like, he's just a...
But he's not made of snakes and spiders. He's made of little beetle things.
Yeah.
Unless he's made of spiders, I'm not actually sure.
So I'm wondering, like, maybe that is just who he is. Maybe he's just a complex guy. You know, he doesn't have to be one thing.
Accept him for who he is.
Yeah, he's made up of lots of bugs, but he also gambles and he makes stew. You know, maybe that. But
it's strange that he's bugs. I just want to know. I just want to understand the thought process that went into making him a bag of bugs.
Yeah. And in a film where you have a character who's the bad politician and he's the bad politician, you know, that's his deal. And you have
and the skeleton is scary.
Yeah.
Like, everything's very straightforward.
Yeah.
And then he is bugs.
Yeah. Why would they do that?
I'm just not getting any answers out of this. Why is he bugs?
That's fair enough. Yeah, it's weird when they have a kind of cobbled together thing in the film, which kind of seems tacked on and doesn't really make any structural sense, isn't it, Paris?
I feel like you're getting at something there. Do tell?
No, well, I might be picking at a stitch to release an arm, perhaps somewhere.
Let it out, my friend. Let it out.
No. Well, it's just like what I've mentioned before. It's Sally, and unfortunately, being the only other woman in the film, she ends up with the male protagonist.
Okay, so I remember you saying the other day you had an issue with this because they have 4 appearances together. Is that right?
That's right. So just to give you a little bit of background, why would you do this? Sally, during Jack's opening monologue, she professes her unrequited feelings for him, but they don't. Their first lines together, Jack isn't even aware of her. He doesn't have any chemistry with her. Like, they don't meet until 40 minutes into the film, which is way past the halfway mark. So it's not interwoven in the film. It just seems tacked on, and they have no chemistry at all. They don't ever bounce off one another. They don't really ever help one another. She actively sabotages his plans.
To protect him.
It just seems baffling. Like,
okay. I'm gonna.
Okay, fine.
I'm gonna slightly disagree with this,
okay,
because
that's fine.
You say obviously they only meet a few times in the film, but as we have established, there is there's backstory. This is not. All these people know each other and they've lived in this town together for a long time. So we don't know what's gone down previously, and also, I would argue that, much like Chicken Run, there is a turning point in their relationship.
Right, okay.
And to be honest, I shamelessly got all of this idea off a friend of ours.
That's okay.
Credit to him. But when Sally sends Jack the basket with the resources to help him...
Okay.
He's isolated himself at that point,
yes,
and he thinks no one's going to understand and no one's going to help him. And then this person reaches out and sends him help, even though she doesn't really want to because she knows it's a bad idea.
All right.
But, she reaches out to him and provides something to help him, so he feels less isolated. So that's kind of the turning point where they start to, where he might like her back.
But she disappears. He doesn't see who left the gift.
I think he does.
Okay, well that's fair enough. I think that's a little ambiguous, but I see your point. But then why would she sabotage him later if she's going to help him then?
Well, that actually brings me on to a nice segue onto our next thing.
Okay.
Because Sally has her vision and she knows it's all going to go wrong, but Jack never listens to her.
No.
And from a kind of feminist perspective, it's very interesting that Sally never gets listened to.
Yeah, that's true.
And the only person that really credits what she says is at the end when Santa says she's the only one who makes any sense in this place. So that begs the question, is Christmas Town more progressive and feminist than Halloweentown?
Ooh, interesting. I mean, I couldn't say. It's never really specified what's going on there.
That's what I'm wondering. Which brings us on to, quite nicely,
the next question.
Whatever question. What is the historical significance?
Okay.
And I want to jump right in there with some feminist analysis of
lay
this
it on me,
film.
Paris. Okay.
So, are you ready for this?
I'm so ready.
Right. Well, the first time we see Sally, she's escaping Dr. Finkelstein.
Yeah.
Who does say at one point, "You're mine, I made you," which is this kind of theme that's recurring in a lot of media and in life really, of a female obligation to someone that's given you something. And I'm going to make a comparison that's completely out of left field here.
Nah, bring it.
You know the 1981 song Don't You Want Me by the Human League?
Okay, I wasn't expecting this.
I've been sitting on this for days. In which the plot is basically, I made you who you are. I made you successful in this life. So now you belong to me. You have to want me.
It is quite skeezy, isn't it?
That's the plot of that song, and that's kind of like what Dr. Finkelstein is doing. He's like, I made you. You are obligated to me. You owe me everything, kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
And he's portrayed as this, visibly disgusting character.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a looker, let's be honest.
Okay, so this is the film railing against that.
Perhaps, yeah. It's also interesting that at the end of the film, Dr. Finkelstein gets a new companion.
Yeah.
but she has a piece of his brain.
Yes.
And he respects her a lot more than he respects Sally. So it's kind of like,
yeah.
does she have to have a piece of him to be worth anything in his mind?
I see. So it's back to possession?
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing with Sally, I'm just going for this.
Lay it on us.
Another thing with Sally is she has to destroy herself several times.
Yes, that is true.
Which I think is very interesting. When we first see her, she unstitches her arm to get away from Dr. Finkelstein. Later on, she unstitches her leg and uses it as a sort of seductive tool. It's much better than I'm describing it. That sounds really weird. She unstitches her leg to rescue Santa, basically. So all throughout the film, you see her destroying herself to achieve what she wants to do. Yeah. Which is really quite sad.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the only way she can actually get things done. Yeah. Is at her own cost. Interesting you bring up the stitching again. So I was kind of bringing this back and forth, especially in a feminist context. So her job, Jack Skellington assigns everyone jobs to put on a Christmas, and her job is to sew the outfit together. Yeah. Which on the surface seems like kind of really quite a stereotypical feminine role, like, oh, you're going to sew this together. You're a seamstress, basically. There is a spiral on her sewing machine, if I didn't mention that earlier. But then the very first time you see her as a character doing anything, it's unpicking her arm to get free of Dr. Finkelstein. So maybe that is another subversion, that actually it's the sewing that gives her power. And like you mentioned, when she can disassemble herself in order to rescue Father Christmas through, unsewing herself.
Okay, that's an interesting point, yeah.
So maybe that is a version of that actually she's taking this trope of the woman having to, sit there and sew things, and actually she's
owning it.
Well, she's making a bit badass, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
So would you say that there's definitely a feminist interpretation?
There's a feminist reading. Okay. I don't fully know if it's, it's probably not deliberate on the part of the film, really, but it's interesting to explore anyway. I think as well, we can add Shock, the trick-or-treater, to this. Yes. Because when the trick-or-treaters are first introduced, the mayor refers to them as Boogie's boys, even though one of them is, I'd say quite clearly, a girl. I think she's a girl. But then I think if she's perceived as a boy by the mayor, is that important to the fact they're recruited by Jack? Like, does she have to have this kind of boyish quality about her to get anywhere?
Yeah, and all the kids wear masks as well.
Yeah, so there is that element of hiddenness. So, unless you have anything else on historical significance...
Oh, Paris, you're going to love this.
Oh, go for it.
Okay, this is a couple of steps, but there is a very historical reading of this, which you may not have considered.
Okay.
Okay, so first I want you to take into account the holidays that you glimpse in this film.
Right.
So obviously there's Halloween, there's Christmas.
Yeah.
But at the Nexus you also glimpse Thanksgiving, and you glimpse St. Patrick's Day.
Yep. And Easter.
And Easter. So I'd argue this particular collection of holidays is very American.
Yeah.
So I know St. Patrick's Day is Irish, but it's celebrated in America as well. So America, historically a Protestant country.
Okay.
Also, Halloween in particular, influenced by early 20th century German styles in the visual style.
Right.
Germany, obviously Martin Luther, that's where Protestantism comes from.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, this Protestant air.
Okay.
The town of Halloween is a constitutional monarchy. Jack Skellington is the Pumpkin King, but it is run by an elected official, the mayor.
Right.
Christmas Town is an absolute monarchy. As far as we can tell, Father Christmas has all the power and runs the show.
Okay.
So what happens is a more progressive monarch from a Protestant realm goes over to a different colourful realm, takes over, and it is celebrated. This is an allegory to the 1689 Glorious Revolution in the UK.
Oh my goodness me.
Well, in England at the time. This is the Glorious Revolution.
You're right.
Which was when, in 1689, William of Orange comes to the UK to displace James II. The Catholic king, William of Orange, was Protestant.
Is this what happens when I let you crash my history lectures?
And also, the 1689 Bill of Rights passed in Parliament after the Glorious Revolution set out the rights of Parliament and restrict the absolute power of Father Christmas or the monarchy. leading to the constitutional monarchy that we see in Halloweentown.
I am stunned. That was great.
Thank you.
That was a good one.
Any critiques in that? Any things I've missed about the Glorious Revolution, or is this?
I mean, the Glorious Revolution's not my speciality,
wow.
so I'm just gonna. Yeah,
clearly it is Jack Skellington.
That's a good one.
Well, speaking of history, our next question is: who in history would you give this to?
I struggled on this one.
Okay, well, I actually have something, and again, it's on the theme of hardcore Protestantism.
Oh,
as very few of our themes before this episode have been. I would give this to Oliver Cromwell, who, with his Parliament, famously repressed the celebration of Christmas in the 1640s.
Of course.
So what I would do is I would show him this film. And I would hope that, number one, he'd see the joy that Christmas brings to people's lives, but also perhaps by contrast that Halloween is so spooky and scary, that he'd see that actually Christmas isn't so bad at all, and it's pretty great.
Yeah,
because I like Christmas. Paris, you're a fan of Christmas, and
Christmas is great.
Yeah, we don't want that not to be celebrated. So I think that might. I'm
going to agree with you on that. Mm-hmm. Shall we move on to our next question?
Yes,
rather quickly. But...
That's fine. Yeah.
So, question 9: when will this be forgotten?
Ooh, okay.
Now, I want to like kind of separate this out, because I think we have to answer this question in 2 parts, much like Mr. Brightside versus the whole album. I feel like I've accidentally plugged every one of our episodes in this episode, but never mind.
It's all right. The people listening have listened to all of them because they're great people and they're really cool.
Thank you. Sally and Jack, as distinct from the film, like.
Oh, okay.
I think Sally and Jack are kind of a different realm of memory in that they're the icons of the film and they're remembered. You know, like, you get merchandise of them a lot more than you get it of the film in general. Like, they're kind of Halloween icons, mascots, yeah.
No, icons is better, I think.
Okay. So I think they would be remembered longer than the film.
And the design, yeah, you're right. They are very iconic designs. I mean, the whole film's very stylized, but if you gave someone a pencil and paper, Jack Skellington's probably the easiest thing and most recognizable thing to draw. And if you had it on on a bag or a hoodie or anything like that, it's like, oh, it's that thing. You might not even have seen the film.
That spooky Halloween thing.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't actually see this film until, I think the first time I saw it, I was 16. But I've been seeing people wearing Halloween kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I knew who Jack and Sally were a long time before I ever actually got around to seeing the film.
Yeah, okay. So do you think that kind of iconic design is well, it's been 24 years since the film was released, and you'll probably see people dressed up like that on this Halloween, maybe. Yeah,
I mean, Sally's very interesting aesthetically. Like, she's cool to dress up as, because she just looks quite cool, really.
Yeah.
So are we saying that Sally and Jack are going to be remembered in a aesthetic sense rather than in a character sense? Because, I mean,
yes,
as you have discussed, Sally's character is not the deepest of characters. No. So I suppose the image of Sally and Jack is very memorable.
Yes, and I'd argue the portrayal of Jack, it's always as the Pumpkin King. It's always as he is at the start of the film. Yeah. Just like how the iconic shot of the film is in Jack's kind of opening monologue.
Yeah.
If you were true to the character of Jack, you'd represent his arc and what he learns throughout the film. But actually, it's not true to the character of him. It's just true to his look. Like his iconic stylized look. So because it's from the start of the film, I think it's the look that's really enduring here. So yeah, I'd say I'd agree with you. I think that his style, her style, will live on. But perhaps not the rest of the film.
I mean, I feel like the film will live on in that it's a Disney film and Disney never dies.
And it's tied to a particular holiday. So if you can carve out that kind of niche, if it's a thing you watch at Halloween or a thing you watch at Christmas, I guess it does have that stake.
I suppose it's,
But I agree with you. I think the film's days may not last forever, not as much as its design, its look, and especially its main characters.
Yeah.
So speaking of things that seem to last forever...
Oh, no. Question 10. What is this to do with Brexit?
The question that we must ask ourselves every day, and so we put it on the podcast.
All day, every day.
What could a story about Halloween have to do with Brexit?
Well, one quote that I particularly was drawn to in thinking about Brexit was when the mayor is... I believe he's knocking on Jack's door and Jack's not answering. Yes. And he's basically like, I'm only an elected official. I can't make my own decisions. Discuss.
Oh, right, okay. So is this, would he be deferring to a referendum, perhaps, to make his decision?
Perhaps.
And then he
Or
can defer from that?
I was thinking more the idea of the kind of propagandistic idea that the UK Parliament can't make any decisions at all.
Oh, I see,
the
yes.
EU has to make all of them.
Ah, right,
So he
okay,
is the UK
okay.
politician, but he can't make his own decisions because his hands are tied by Brexit.
Right, I see. And then would the different worlds and realms of Halloween come into this? So there...
Freedom of movement.
Yes, yeah, well, that's the thing. So there seems to be freedom of movement between the worlds because Jack just falls into Christmas.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have to show any papers. There's no Christmas security guards or anything like that. And it's so easy that the Halloween kids just walk into Christmas land and kidnap Father Christmas.
Yeah.
Which, if I tried to walk into France and kidnap the president, that would be quite difficult. I hope.
I hope it would be difficult too. Another thing with that is, in the scene where Jack is trying to make Christmas items, everything turns into something Halloween-based.
Yes.
Like, no matter how he tries, it turns spooky. So is that a kind of thing about citizenship? Like, nationality is rigid, you can't kind of assimilate into any other nationality. It's about, keeping everything in boxes behind borders. Like a present. Behind borders kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe it's the opposite. I mean, it's still a Christmas thing. It's still blue, but it's got a Halloween bent. Maybe it's showing that things can sort of take on characteristics of both worlds.
So it's more dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Okay,
or that you can go to a different place and still sort of work in your own way and also fit in.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, is this pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit? 'Cause I think we're getting a lot of fragmented ideas here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tonally the film is sometimes jumps around like a Halloween ghost train. So was it pro or anti-Brexit? Well, there's two camps. So Jack comes in and tries to essentially govern Christmas Town by running Christmas, but doesn't do a very good job. So you could argue, if you're not from this place, then why should you try and think of the best for it and try and govern it? So that might be a more isolationist reading of the film.
Okay.
But alternatively, we found out that the cultures of the different realms in the film can mix quite well, and that there is freedom of movement. So maybe that is good. We'll leave it up to you, the listener.
Yes, very inconclusive conclusion there.
Yes.
So, question 11.
Yes.
If you could reproduce this in another genre, what would you choose?
Well, this is quite interesting because the film already is a re-genred piece.
Okay.
So Tim Burton wrote a poem called The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh.
And that ended up being the film. So
I didn't know that.
Exactly. So the original poem, unfortunately, is a bit too long to read out on the podcast, but give it a read. It's quite whimsical and fun. Okay. Yeah, that was the genesis for the whole film. So this has already been re-genred in a way.
Okay.
And very effectively, I might add, I do prefer the film to the poem, although the poem is obviously quite fun. Did you have any thoughts on how you re-genre it?
Well, I wanted to talk about genre in regards to Tim Burton because I remember I was doing some research on Sweeney Todd a while ago. I mean, that sounds really fancy. I just watched a documentary on YouTube. And Tim Burton really dislikes musicals, but he obviously made Sweeney Todd and he was behind The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes.
But the thing he does when he makes musicals, like I'm going to use Sweeney Todd as a main example here, is that he doesn't make them all, choral and dancey and very, very jazzy kind of musicals. He makes them quite, like, the musical element of it isn't overdone. It's just kind
subdued.
It's subdued, which I would say, that really works well for Sweeney Todd because the subject matter is the kind of thing that doesn't demand big dance numbers, really. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? And I think that's the same with Nightmare Before Christmas. The musical element is quite subdued. Like, I couldn't really see it adapted on Broadway with a big dance number. That would be very weird.
Benefit from that.
So I feel like the fact that Tim Burton dislikes musicals is good for this film. It keeps the musical element in check, I'd say.
Okay.
So, I mean, that doesn't quite answer the question, but...
No, that's good. So even though it has musical elements, you wouldn't like to see it re-genred as a larger piece, as a Broadway musical or anything like that.
Similarly, I wouldn't like to see it re-genred as a non-musical, because I think the musical element of it lightens it up a bit. I think it could be a bit
drab.
It would be a bit drab if
Yeah.
it didn't have the songs in it, I think. So I think it's in just the right level of musical, basically.
That's fair.
So I think genre-wise, I would actually just keep it the same.
That's fair. I think it works pretty nicely in the little genre niche it's carved out. But when I say carved out, I actually have quite a rogue suggestion.
Oh, I'm interested.
I would re-genre this as a series of between 15 and 20 carved wood engravings.
Oh, wow.
So like, maybe hung...
That was right out of left field, was.
I was inspired by this by a series that's on at the Graves Gallery in Sheffield. You can see some old William Blake engravings telling the story of Job. And they're so, like, incredibly intricately done, and I thought they were amazing. But in this film, because it's stop motion, you see on the models for, especially for stuff made of wood, like, it's kind of been carved out to look like the grains in the bark of a tree. And that kind of caught me, and I thought, oh, what would it look like if you did a carving of this? And I think that would look really nice.
That's actually really cool. I like that.
So I would re-genre this as a series of wood carvings, which, knowing how much the internet loves this film, probably already exists.
Probably.
Some independent creator has probably created them, and if so, kudos. I shall be googling that after we finish recording.
Yeah.
So we've got some cool ideas for how to work around the genre of this piece. What other questions do we have to pick apart this film?
Well, we have one more question, but before that, any summarising thoughts? Do you have any?
I've got a couple. Paris, do you have any?
I think I've mostly gone through everything. The other thing I was going to mention, I sort of alluded to this with the Brexit question, the whole thing about everything he makes turns Halloweeny. That's not really a word. Never mind. Halloweeny. It's like a very conformist thing.
Yeah.
Like he's sort of bound to his destiny as Halloween, as Pumpkin King. It's like this idea that he can't diverge from what he's born into, perhaps.
Oh yeah, okay. Breaking the molds.
Yeah, which is reflected when Sally's little Christmas branch catches fire. It's like, if you try and step out of whatever is the established order, it's all going to go wrong.
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense, and that is reinforced throughout the conclusion of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
I just had a couple of extra thoughts, just kind of scatterbrain. There's only one use of pink in the film, which is the Easter Bunny.
Okay.
That's quite nice.
I guess that's just the Easter colour.
I know, right? But it doesn't show up anywhere else, which kind of...
Well, I suppose Easter doesn't show up anywhere else.
That's true.
So maybe it's just to exaggerate the difference between the towns.
There's... Whilst the Halloweentown is quite lots of irregular shapes, you do see a lot of geometry in the characters and the objects they use. So presents are squares, the mayor is a big triangle, obviously a snowman is two circles, or you'll see people through geometry. You'll see like looking out of a triangular window or a square window. I couldn't put my finger on exactly if this meant anything. I think it's just a stylistic choice.
I think it's stylistic.
But it draws your eye towards what's going on, whereas if you had there's no square building in the background. Like it's kind of an irregular mesh, and then the regularity of some of these shapes draws your eye to it, which is nice. And then my final little concluding point, the mayor, he has painted fingernails. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
You just don't usually see a guy with painted fingernails, so fair enough. He's doing what he wants, and that's nice. So well done, Mayor of Halloweentown.
Progressive.
So our final question.
Our final question is, give this a more honest title.
Yes.
I think you mentioned earlier Crooked Christmas.
Crooked Christmas
It's a potential.
Could be
on the drawing board.
I mean, yeah, it's that candy cane aesthetic. What have we said about this film? We've talked about how it's definitely an allegory for the 1688 Glorious Revolution. We've talked about how it has a feminist reading to it, how it's got these different styles between worlds.
How Sally and Jack will definitely endure.
Well,
so,
yes.
There's that point.
That's true.
This is where Jack Skellington comes from.
How about... This is Halloween.
Okay.
You could say this is Tim Burton, or because
someone trying to impersonate Tim Burton.
That's it. Because if you were Tim Burton, you wouldn't say this is Tim Burton. But what the director's trying to do is be like, This is what Tim Burton is. This is speaking.
So this is, we're pretending Tim Burton was here for more than 10 days.
Yeah, that's good. I'm imagining like a sign that's like number of days since Tim was here, and it like gets counted up every day, and then
Tim, come back!
Yeah, come back, comma Tim, signed Danny Elfman. I don't know. Why is he Bugs?
Why is he Bugs?
Why is he Bugs?
I mean, that's something that's, it's really bugged me.
Yeah. And then there's spirals everywhere. Don't think I've forgotten. So we've got spirals, Tim Burton, two cultures, and
Jack. This is where Jack comes from.
Yes.
I want to go with Tim Burton was definitely here when we made this.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm keen. That's good. And look how Tim Burton he is. He must have been
this
here.
Is so Burton.
Yeah, okay.
That's so Burton.
That's so Burton.
I like it.
The Nightmare Before Christmas, subtitle, That's So Burton. Very nice, Paris.
And on that bombshell, I've been Paris.
I've been Jonny.
Thank you for listening to 12 Questions.
Bye.
Bye.